Fear not. Come to the light, my friend. When I tell you people I was the one, I wasn't fucking joking. With what I've learned and all the things that I know, I feel nothing but pity for all you people that have doubted anything I've ever said and tried to teach any of you people. It's all true and it's all correct, at least on this subject. Dr. Wallach did everything. He put it all together. You could bring the whole system down. You all spend this time whining about this debate about who should get free healthcare. Well, the truth is nobody even needs healthcare. The entire system of healthcare is rigged from the jump. It's nothing but a price-fixing scam run through the insurance companies. They take all your money, they put it into a massive pool, and then they rig the prices of it. That's literally all they do. Healthcare doesn't cost anything, and most of what they give you is a scam. It's literally all a scam. Like every treatment and all that stuff that they give you and all these charities that they got, it's all a scam. They're just raking in that money and robbing it blind. These philanthropies that they run, they funnel all the money back to themselves, and then they tell you they're charitable. It's all a joke. They do the same thing in healthcare. They just get you to pool all your money in, then they steal it, and then they tell you healthcare costs a lot. You're a bunch of dummies. Healthcare costs like $50 a month. All you gotta do is take nutrition seriously, and you win the game. All right, so basically what Dr. Wallach did is he solved the Rubik's Cube of health, and he didn't do it in the most efficient fashion. So basically what our job now from here, take his information that he gave to us, take this, we refine it into an exact science, build the world around it. You build the world around it because through nutrition comes brain power. You can't have a functional brain if you don't have proper nutrition in your life, and you can't have proper nutrition if you don't have trace minerals. And if you don't accept the concept of trace mineral and rare earth deficiency causing all known disease, you are going to fail. Once the world wakes up to this, it revolutionizes itself in all other aspects. Once every person has a working brain, they can start to become a moral person. You can't be a moral person when you're eating sugar and you're eating wheat and you're eating seed oils and everything in the system that's been designed to control you and give you lack of brain function. They want you with lack of brain function to control you, and the way to control you is through nutrition. The controllers of society figured this out a long time ago, and they've beaten you down so badly mentally on this subject that it's unbelievable. I struggle to deal with you people on this subject because it's so simple and it's so easy, but you constantly mock me and ridicule me for spending like $50 a month to guarantee I could pretty much never get sick again. I mean, there's days I don't feel my best, but I'll never be sick again. That's a guarantee. I'm going to show up day in and day out for the rest of my life. Same thing Dr. Wallach did. The guy hasn't been sick in like 90 years. Everything he told me, exactly what happened. Everything he promised from taking his products, it all happened. All you got to do is refine your diet down a little bit. If we all do that, we can make it so there's food everywhere for everybody to eat. Like the part about not eating healthy, it's impossible because everywhere you go, they sell you the same shit. Doesn't matter where you eat. Cisco Restaurant Solutions is supplying your crap, and it's all oil based. I've worked at enough places and seen enough ingredients to know that everything in this system is controlled by these restaurant supply companies, and they've made damn well good and sure that they're poisoning everything they sell you. And they have it's a fun one to unravel, but we don't have to worry about that stuff. It's over. We got to end it now, and we just got to accept this idea and move on. Forget the past because it's over. It's gone.
Yes, my husband and I are thinking about starting a family, and we want to know the nutritional way to go.
Okay, that's a great question. People always ask me, well, when do children need to start taking vitamins and minerals? And the answer is when they're still an egg is when you want to start them. And so we've learned in the animal industry, and remember I'm a veterinarian as well as a physician, we've learned in the animal industry that we could prevent as much as 98% of all birth defects, even ones that are thought to be genetic in humans, simply by giving the females, especially the females, all known essential nutrients for that species 6 months prior to conception. Build up that female animal's body in stores of these essential nutrients so that the embryo implants in the uterine wall and develops in an environment that has optimal amounts, guaranteed optimal amounts of all the nutrients, and you will almost eliminate the possibility of a congenital birth defect related to a mineral or vitamin or amino acid or essential fatty acid deficiency. To give you some idea of how successful this is, according to the University of California, San Francisco, right now in America, 1 out of every 33 human babies in America are born with some physical or emotional or mental birth defect. 1 out of 33. In animals, it's only 1 out of 500,000 if they're fed these commercial diets that have all the known nutrients in them. And so it's just very, very easy to understand, well, if we supplement young women and men who are in the childbearing years with these nutrients, that we'll be able to eliminate, totally eliminate cleft palates, cleft lips, spina bifida, eye defects, heart defects, hernias of various types, club feet, no feet, webbed fingers and toes, no fingers and toes, muscular dystrophy, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, cystic fibrosis. These are all preventable with proper preconception nutrition. So the earlier that a couple who wants to have normal, healthy children and have a wonderful, uncomplicated pregnancy, the earlier you can get on all 90 essential nutrients prior to conception, the better off everybody is.
Now, for those of you who don't know a lot of neuroanatomy, this is kind of a rendition of a human brain. So I can clarify this for you here. This one here, the hypothalamus, that arrow is pointing right to the pre-optic hypothalamus, the part of the brain that's underdeveloped called hypoplasia, which means underdeveloped. And when it's underdeveloped, they're going to be a homosexual male or a gay male or a lesbian female. It's predictable as gravity. You can count the cells and you know. Okay. Now I do want to jump in here for a moment. I let somebody copy these things and they bent them all up, so I'm never going to let that happen again. Okay, but I do want to show you a couple more things here when it comes to congenital events in the human brain. I think it's important for you to know this because we're the parents and grandparents. It's not God versus science, because God invented everything, even science, right? 1953, these two guys, one guy was an American, James Watson, the other guy was a British guy, Francis Crick. Watson and Crick, 1953, they came up with the double helix structure of DNA. 9 years later, 1962, they got the Nobel Prize for it. They really thought they had it figured out. They said, we now know what God knows about humanity, was their quote. All we have to do is be able to figure out how to make the normal gene and replace the bad gene. We can cure every disease. And of course, here's a chromosome. Really cool. These are telomeres. This will become important a little bit later. Telomeres. Okay, these determine how often this chromosome will be able to duplicate. Okay, as it duplicates, these get shorter and shorter. And one of the things for longevity is to figure out how to keep them from getting shorter and shorter. Okay, so remember that. But back in the old days, rich people, royalty, very wealthy merchants used to make collections of birth defects. Cleft palate, cleft lip, spina bifida, hydrancephalus, the brain was hanging out of the head, too many fingers, not enough arms, all that kind of stuff. They would save them in bottles of wine and alcohol and stuff, kind of a collector's item. My collection's bigger than your collection kind of thing. And those collections, 30,000 babies like that, 60,000 babies, you find them in all the European medical schools. They go back thousands of years, those collections. How many of you have heard of identical twins? Now, come on, I'm going to ask that again. Raise your hand. How many of you have ever, okay, that's better. Identical twins. Now, you'd think identical twins would be identical, but they're not. DNA-wise, they're identical. DNA-wise, are identical. You can't tell the difference. You do DNA testing, they're exactly the same. When you look at them, these two look like sisters to me. They don't look identical. This one's an inch shorter than that one. This one's face is wider. This one's face is longer. Even though she's shorter, her face is longer. Look at that. Okay? This is kind of a crazy situation. Their hairlines are different. And so they look like sisters to me. This one being the older one would be my guess if I didn't know they're identical twins. This whole issue of the National Geographic goes into this. It says, twins alike but not alike. And this goes back to the term epigenetics. How many of you heard of epigenetics? Okay, a couple of us. Okay, epigenetics. You'll learn that term. Okay, epigenetics are things that influence how your genes perform. Okay? Your genes do not sit in isolation. You can't take a handful of genes and throw them in. These would be perfect genes and just duplicate perfectly, right? You can take a handful of these perfect genes, throw them into a bucket of saline solution, say, okay, genes, go to it, duplicate. They're going to be like the tar baby. They ain't going to do nothing because they need raw materials, substrates, they need energy, right? They need all kinds of stuff. They need cofactors to make things work. Any of those things missing, they don't work. You put food on a table, this twin's going to eat differently than that twin. Even though the same food is on the table, I don't like icky broccoli. Oh, I love broccoli, you know, kind of stuff. And so they affect how their genes will react based on what they're eating or not eating. Now, in the first 91 days of pregnancy, everything is formed. The embryo, the human embryo, the animal embryo, is moving along an assembly line, kind of like the Ford cars. And if the guy who's supposed to be putting on the the fuel pump into the engine, you know, has to go to the bathroom, he has to take a pee, he goes back in the back and he doesn't stop the line, doesn't say, hey, come fill in for me while I'm doing that, he might come out and 15 cars are going by then. So at the end of the line, there's 15 cars without a fuel pump. Because one of the pieces was missing during that time, right? Well, the same thing is happening to human babies. After the first 91 days, when the baby's forming, everything else is just growth. By 91 days, you got what you got. There ain't going back. There are some exceptions, but not many. Now, Sarah Palin, whether you liked her politics or not, she was a sexually active woman who is over 45 years of age, very high risk of having a Down syndrome baby. Now, her OBGYN should be put in jail forever. Because he should have said to her, you know, Sarah, you're going to be out on the road out there eating hotel food and rubber chickens and all this kind of stuff. You'll be taking some serious vitamins and minerals because at your age, you're still cycling, you're sexually active, you better be taking the 90 essential nutrients. You better be taking all known essential nutrients, otherwise you're at a high risk to have a baby with Down syndrome. The OBGYN never said that. Never offered her any advice. And so, guess what happened to Sarah Palin? She had a baby born with Down syndrome. That OBGYN should go to jail. Then that would never happen again. But there's no consequences. Even for the governor of Alaska, even for the vice presidential candidate of the United States, her doctor screwed up that bad, and he didn't lose his license, didn't have his license suspended for 3 seconds, wasn't fined as much as a traffic ticket. There's no consequence. And this will happen over and over and over and over. Oh, just what bad luck. No. It's bad or lack of advice. You wouldn't tolerate that kind of service from anybody else, from any other industry. In the old days, they'd be burned at the stake. The doctor would have been burned at the stake in the old days. A couple more and then we'll get back on the track here, but these are too much fun. Oh, here's the ones I've been looking for. The human brain, as it's forming, this is at 3 weeks of age, and this is when homosexuality occurs at that 3-week to 4-week level in here, when the hypothalamus is forming. And as the brain is going down the assembly line to get to this at 6 months of age, it requires a lot of stuff. I'm one of the guys that sued the FDA over folic acid. Without me suing them, back in the 90s, they still wouldn't have folic acid and prenatal vitamins. There would still be a high risk of spina bifida. I'm one of the guys that sued them for that. Okay? And so I'm very familiar with this kind of stuff. Cerebral palsy, totally preventable. This is an underdevelopment of the cerebellum, the part of the brain that deals with the fine motor movement. And you'll notice that people with cerebral palsy is kind of a spectrum. You get them that are barely affected, and it takes a professional neurologist to tell you that they got cerebral palsy. I mean, they might just kind of walk funny, and you think, God, that kid's already dancing. But they already have some early stage of cerebral palsy. Now, when a child is born, a normal baby, 6, 7, 8 pounds, their cerebellum is part of the brain that affects fine motor movement. It should be the size of a small tangerine. When they have cerebral palsy, that cerebellum could be the size of a plum, which is like 30% smaller. They're going to have cerebral palsy. Or they could be the size of a walnut, which is 60% smaller. They're going to have this type of cerebral palsy. Oh, he's got cerebral palsy kind of thing. And then you get this 11-year-old girl who has catastrophic cerebral palsy. The only thing she can move is her eyes. It costs $1 million a month to care for her. Between all the physical therapy and the speech therapy and this therapy and feeding tubes and enemas because she can't have a bowel movement, all this stuff. Plus, you know, a $100,000 machine so she can kind of with one finger move herself around, run over the chickens because she can't steer it very good and all that kind of stuff. This is because the mother was missing just a few pennies worth of stuff before pregnancy. Somebody needs to go to jail here. This just goes on and on and on and on. Now, her cerebellum, you can actually look, the CAT scan, the size of a pea. Her mother had severe deficiencies for longer periods of time, so that piece went down through that 91 days and never got enough to develop. And again, for those of you who don't know the anatomy, there's a cerebellum right here. Okay? This is this piece here. That's the piece that doesn't develop when you have cerebral palsy. Varying degrees of severity. This is one of my favorite slides. Everybody knows about belly button hernias. This kid is born with one the size of a walnut. You give him a hypnotic, not enough to put him under general anesthesia, but just enough to make him kind of drug-induced intoxication. You give him some local anesthesia, and in 10 minutes' time, this is easily dealt with. But here's another belly button hernia. This one, probably mama was missing some zinc for a week as the embryo goes from a disc into a tube, and this piece didn't get zippered up during development. Well, here's one. These two, next two, were on the autopsy table. These are, I'm a pathologist, so I see crazy stuff like this. This one, there was no skin over the belly button hernia, and the stomach and the spleen and some of the intestines were hanging out. And of course, it caused that child his life. It was a perfect baby, nothing wrong with that baby except a little belly button hernia. And the muscles incarcerated that circulation to all that stuff, and the baby dies of circulatory shock during the birth process. And here's one that's really wild. Same thing on the autopsy table. Here, the liver, the stomach, the spleen, all the intestines are out. That's a catastrophic belly button hernia. Totally avoidable. The OBGYN didn't have his license suspended for 3 seconds. Didn't have to pay a parking ticket. Got to walk. Now, if a mechanic scratches your car while he's rotating the tires, you sue him. Oh, this was just an act of God. No, it wasn't. It was a failure of the system. Same way here. You can find a good Christian doctor who would volunteer his time to sew up these kids. You can go to the Save the Children fund and get the $250 each for the anesthesia and the suture material. But all of this is totally preventable. Rich women, poor women, middle-class women all have babies with cleft palate and cleft lip. It's a simple nutritional deficiency in the embryo when it's closing up as a tube. How many of you have heard of babies being born deaf, congenital deafness? Very common. It's a deficiency of a single mineral, manganese. I don't know, there must be 200 studies on this back in the 50s and 60s. We know for a fact, as predictable as gravity, you can prevent congenital deafness and certain types of things that would look like cerebral palsy, called congenital ataxia, because the semicircular canals in the ears are all damaged from a lack of one mineral, manganese. Not magnesium, but manganese. There's a lot of prenatal vitamins that don't have manganese in them. Well, here's what the medical system is looking for. They're looking to decode the genes. There's 100 papers that show very clearly that this is caused by a manganese deficiency in the first few weeks of pregnancy. They're looking for the gene. Why? Because that's where the bucks are at. Another one of my favorites, and we're going to take after they clear up all these terrorists in Russia, we're going there. Beautiful little kids. In this little village in Russia, each year, 50% of the kids there are born with 100% of this birth defect. You'll know what I mean in a second. 25% are born with 25% of this birth defect, and the other 25% are born with a different type of variation on this birth defect. The doctors there tell them it's a genetics caused by radiation from the power plant 700 miles away. Caca. You know, that's a scientific word. Caca. Now, most people look at these kids. They're so cute, you don't really see the birth defect at first. But each of these kids is missing their left forearm. In that village, 50% every year, they're born with both forearms missing. 25% are born with their left forearm missing. 25% are born with their right forearm missing. Now, genetics don't work that way. Now, if they're all born with their right forearm missing, you could say, well, it has the possibility, it has a look of genetics, but I guarantee it wouldn't be. But, you know, you could say that. But this variation, it's not. You just fourth grade biology, you know it's not. You need to spend millions of dollars trying to do tests. Okay? And so, in the near future, maybe when I'm 100 years old, we'll retire, and we'll go to Russia, and we'll take enough nutrients for all these sexually active women who are in the childbearing years, and give them a year's supply of this stuff. And that year, there will never be a baby born with that, but I guarantee you, the special nutrient called zinc is missing in that soil. This is type of limb deformities are caused by a zinc deficiency. Somebody needs to go to jail. Now, you know, there's all of these genetic screening tests. There's 850 of them. These biotech companies. I mean, there's a lot of biotech companies in California. Come up with all these tests for genetic diseases, right? There's a whole class of people now called patients in waiting. How many of you have heard of patients in waiting? These are ones that are diagnosed 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago, diagnosed with one of these screening tests as having this birth defect, and they were going to die within a year or 5 years or develop the birth defect. And here we go 40 years later, and they don't ever get it. This little girl, doesn't she look bored? Even her dog looks bored. She's waiting. Her parents won't let her do anything because they were told that she had the genetics for cystic fibrosis. Nah, didn't happen. One more, and then we'll move on to the stuff that you came to hear. But I think you, as parents and grandparents, you need to hear this. Because when presents are due, giving somebody a $50 Macy's gift card is nice, but it's not going to protect your kids and grandkids from these types of problems. You better be giving them the 90 essential nutrients. That'll be the best thing you can do. You'll add 25 to 50 healthy years to your life. You'll prevent all these birth defects. You're going to have to do it because the medical system's not going to do it. The government's not going to do it. You've got to do it. If you don't step up to the plate, then shame on you because you can't unlearn what you just learned tonight. Okay, this will be the last one because you'll get the drift. This fellow here, an eye doctor, a very successful eye doctor, very, you know, he's an elder in the church and all this kind of stuff and filled in for the pastor, good Christian man, had family. He volunteered his time for the Lions Club and raised money for eyeglasses and eye surgeries and all this kind of stuff and did the Rotary Club and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When his youngest child, I reached 18 years of age, he went to Denver and had plastic surgery and became a she. Up here, he was a she, a preoptic hypothalamus. He knew that when he was 6 years old. But down here, he was a male. He was genetically a male, but because Mama was missing something, up here, he was a female. So went and had the surgery and became a female. Had to go to federal court to be able to play tennis in a world league as a female because he had the DNA of a male. But he won in court. Kind of interesting stuff. Kind of wild stuff. Makes you think, doesn't it?
That was Renee Richard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I know the guy who paid for him, gave him a grant to go to school to become an eye doctor. He's one of my patients. He's a billionaire. He's one of my patients. Okay. How many of you have heard of AARP? Okay. This is an issue of their monthly bulletin cover article, March 2012, a year and a half ago. The worst place to be in America when you're sick is an American hospital. I'll show you why they say that. I took two things out of the article, so you know where they're coming from. The number of American patients who die each year from American hospital errors is the same as 4 jumbo jets crashing each week. They say there's 1,500 people. That's 3,000 every 2 weeks. It's 6,000 a month, 72,000 a year. How many of you would fly commercial airlines if you knew that they killed 72,000 passengers every year? Nobody would fly. And yet you still go to a doctor. Now you think about it. They kill 72,000 of their customers every year from just simple mistakes. Hello? They don't even get their license suspended for 3 seconds. Nobody goes to jail. They don't get a parking ticket. People say, Wallach, why are you so rough on doctors? My wife is a microsurgeon from Harvard, for God's sakes. Why am I so rough on doctors? Well, if they didn't give me the material, I couldn't do it, could I? This is not my figures. Newsweek magazine cover article. The one word that will save your life in a hospital in America is a 2-letter word that every 2-year-old knows. No! You failed 4 rounds of chemotherapy. We have this new experimental drug we want to use on you. No! How long do I have to live? Well, without this drug, you might live 2 weeks. Good, send me home. If you only have 2 weeks to live, wouldn't you rather be in your own home with your own bed, with your cat on your lap, and your grandkids hugging you, you're passing on your advice to them, instead of dying in the hospital being poisoned by a bunch of money-crazed doctors? Doesn't that make better sense? If they say you only have 2 weeks to live, say, bye-bye, boys and girls, I'm going home so I can hug my grandkids. Instead of your grandkid comes to see you in the hospital and they say, honey, you can't see Grandma right now. She's busy being killed by the doctor. This is my favorite of all favorites because they list the source of all their information. This is a full-page article in the USA Today. Came out February 5th, 2007. And the information was based on the basis of the article. The title is self-evident here, Patient Protect Thyself. And they said the sources, and it came from the Institute of Medicine, the Journal of the American Medical Association, the Center for Disease Control, a federal agency that tracks all this stuff. I mean, we're talking extremely respectable stuff. The Journal of the American Medical Association is the most reputable medical journal in America, maybe even the world. Most highly respected. I mean, even if you don't like doctors, you've got to admit to that, right? So that's where they got the information from. What they said was, it was a full-page article. I had to chop it up to get it on here. They said each year in America, yearly, American doctors kill, injure, and infect 15 million of their customers in their workplace. They kill, injure, and infect 15 million of their customers in their workplace. American doctors kill, injure, and infect more people each year in America than the mafia has in 1,000 years. You're quiet because you get it. Let's see. This one is from Wednesday, November 2012. Johnson & Johnson to pay $2.4 billion in hip implant suits. This represents 10 million hip implant patients. Why on earth would you get a hip implant? Insurance pays. As I say, the worst possible thing for human health in America was the insurance system. It causes this to be attractive to people. Your doctor says, well, you don't fit that profile. You'll be fine. Oh, okay. And you die during surgery. Or you get an infection. They amputate your leg at the hip. Or the thing breaks apart in you, and they have to go back in there and deal with it. Oh, so you get $20,000. Yahoo. There's another one of my favorites because it deals with animals and people. Remember, I'm a veterinarian and a physician. This one is from the Center for Disease Control, that federal agency, again, that tracks this kind of stuff, CDC. Remember I said earlier that according to the Journal of the American Medical Association, the Center for Disease Control, each year in America, medical doctors kill, injure, and infect 15 million of their customers in their workplace. Infections in hospital. This does not include infections from private practices and group practices and all that kind of stuff. Just hospitals each year, according to the CDC, medical doctors infect 2 million people, of which 90,000 die every year. This is a yearly figure. 90,000 die from the infections inflicted upon their customers in their workplace. What would happen to Taco Bell if they were to infect and kill 90,000 customers? They wouldn't be open for 3 breaths. I mean, they would be gonzo. You think about it. You make sure you'll vote for somebody because they'll vote you in insurance that'll pay the doctor. Can anybody name me an insurance policy that prevents or cures disease? You see, insurance just pays the doctor when you screw up. Insurance doesn't protect you from disease. It just offers you up on a plate to the doctor. Oof. Well, how does that happen? How could that happen? Well, it happens because doctors wear the same white coat, the same trousers, the same pantyhose, the same shoes, room to room to room, dragging pee, poop, blood, pus, snot, slime, bacteria, virus, fungus, and yeast from room to room to room. Now, how can I say that? If I say something as outrageous as it is, you know I can always back it up. Because I spend so much time in federal court attacking the FDA, they would love to get me, so I'm always very careful, right? Yes. Okay. Well, that was March of 1998. In August of 2012, 17 years earlier, they identified one bacteria called C. diff, Clostridium difficile. It's only found in human poop. It's a human poop bacteria. Of those 90,000 people who are killed each year in hospitals, 1/3 of them, 30%, 30,000, are killed by this one bug, human poop bug. Now, what would happen if Iran or North Korea were to send over an intercontinental ballistic missile with a biological weapon in it? Hit the big population centers like LA, Chicago, Dallas, New York, Newark, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Miami. And they'd infect 2 million in these high population centers and kill 90,000. Would we send those people a Christmas card? Would we send those people chocolate to win their hearts and minds? No. Even the most ardent anti-war protester would fight you to be the one to push the button to vaporize those people because they just killed their grandma. And yet everybody wants to go to their doctor because insurance pays. Now, to show you how bad this is, in 1993, there were 85,750 of these infections from C. diff, Clostridium difficile, human poop bacteria. 17 years later, in 2010, it went up 400% to 346,800. What does that tell you? It tells you the doctors don't give a rat's tail. They don't care. There's no consequences. It went up 400%. Why should they wash their hands? There's no consequences if they don't. You know, Frank, I killed 7 people today. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We're all in the same boat. Just have another martini and relax. See you on the green. See, now, if they were doing something to stop all this, the chart should look like that, shouldn't it? But it looks like this. What is the date on this? Again, this is August 2012. This is not 100 years ago. It got so bad in 2013, it was a big article in the Wall Street Journal. It's never too awkward to ask. Have you washed your hands, Doc? Back off! You dirty pig. Get out of here. I didn't see you wash your hands. If you ever have to go to a doctor's office, carry a water gun full of urine. He comes in without washing his hands, just spray him. See how it feels, pig. That'll turn them around a little bit, wouldn't it? Now, here's one of my favorites. This, I go to Canada a lot. They get free medical care. Why do they invite me to Canada? Because just because it's free doesn't mean it's good. Now, Rita McNeil was the kind of on record, most people didn't know what she looked like, but on record.
When I tell you people I was the one, I wasn't fucking joking. Fear not. Come to the light, my friend.